People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
It's a new and nicely decorated all-you-can-eat restaurant. You're not going to believe the prices. $7
leaves part of your body mangled and deformed.
made pizza, the best hot and crispy chicken this side of Texas. With plenty
Only gonna make things harder. He's in there.
Right environment to create
mysterious adverts to imply the viewer is being recruited for some form of psychic
parking up front. Try our coconut shrimp, assorted veggies, our legendary.
There's actually laws against performing large-scale exorcisms.
Hey folks, welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I am talking with Simon Glassman. He is the director of the new film Buffet Infinity. There are times where I watch movies for this show, or just watch movies in general, and they really resonate with me. Movies like The Greasy Strangler is the one that comes to mind immediately. Buffet Infinity is a movie that I have started recommending pretty hardcore to my friends that enjoy this kind of movie. This movie, it's out there and I really am here for it. Reminds me a little bit of some of the Adult Swim stuff, maybe a little Too Many Cooks, maybe a little bit of unedited footage of a bear, maybe even non-Adult Swim stuff like the, the WNUF Halloween special. It's out there with some of these really good titles. And I'm going to sing the praises of this one for a long damn time. Really very happy to be speaking with Mr. Glassman about it. I don't think we ruin anything really. Might explain some more things, so no spoiler warning on this one. Thanks so much for listening. Track down Buffet Infinity. You will not be sorry. I hope you enjoy this interview. I want to know more about you. And how'd you get into filmmaking?
I started mostly as a cartoonist, and then I was mostly doing storyboards in school for my projects and my friends' projects, and then moved into doing some music videos, and eventually got the web series that I was working on, and then that ended up becoming a television series for a short period of time. And then I took a break from filmmaking for a couple of years, just in my mid-30s. And then once COVID started, I needed a big project. And I was still always making like little videos, usually commercial parodies. I always thought commercial parodies were my favorite thing on SNL. So I always had an idea for, originally it was going to be like a show that was told through just like the end of the world, but it's like being told by the television and pretending like it's not the end of the world. So it'd be like, I don't know. I think it had name was like Channel X or something, but I don't know. I left that. That was like many, many years ago. And so I just revisited that idea, and a lot of stuff that I've been thinking about for a couple of years. The idea of like a sentient brand that was malicious, and you could only ever discern the story through a bunch of lies, almost like an oral history. I always thought that would be a cool way to tell a story, because it's all you have is your critical thinking to tell whether what's happening in front of you is actually real. And we all have that. It's like whenever somebody tells you what they are, you're immediately suspicious. And Buffy Infinity is constantly telling people what it is and constantly being proven wrong. So it's like this is the most unreliable narrator in the universe.
There's a lot of moving pieces to this film, and I'm so curious, how did it coalesce? Like when you said, okay, I want to revisit this idea, I want to bring this to life. How do you go about it? How do you approach that?
It's just time. Like I think I could have probably had this done like a couple years ago and I would be medium happy with it. But it's just making a mountain one faint stroke at a time. I work on one short, and really I was thinking about it almost as a short. Like each one is their own individual chapter with a bunch of those like filler commercials in between as like window dressing or like a facade for what's actually happening. But the story, it's like there's like each of the shorts, like they have their own kind of it because it wasn't written as a script, it was written as like individual shorts. And then I'm like, how do I build context or build some conflict with that one? And then I add another one. Or I add something to another one that ends up changing another one. Then we reshoot that one. Then we shoot another one to bump up when that one is bumped up against something else. That's why it took 5 years, was the conflict had to make sense, but also make sense inside of like the format that we've set up.
Was it 5 years more of the writing, or did you shoot for a long time too?
Sometimes I'd have alts where I wouldn't be sure where the story would be going. So there's some really funny stuff that got cut out, but I had to have stuff that would make sense if I ended up keeping it in, and also if I ended up cutting it out. So I'd have two different versions while I was shooting, but most of the writing came out from editing and just like going over it and just watching it. I was watching it for the first time.
And where'd you find your actors at?
That's all Edmonton stand-up comedians.
I was curious because I know this is a Canadian production. I can hear a little bit of accents at times that this is Canadian, but I'm seeing a lot of like Baltimore references. Is that just a
Baltimore.
coincidence? Because I like some of the street names and stuff for the locations. I was like, what is going on here? I guess it's just universal.
No, it was all Edmonton. I think that maybe Baltimore just has a lot in common with Edmonton, maybe. But yeah, everything is Edmonton. Like Westridge is an analog for Edmonton. The whole movie is a big reference to this place in Edmonton called the West Edmonton Mall, which is like a really, really big mall that we have here. That's a primary landmark that we've defined ourselves with in the 1990s and 80s. Not realizing that malls would slowly maybe go down in value over a couple decades.
What are you actually shooting this on?
That would just depend on who is shooting it. My primary director of photography was a man by the name of Edgar Pinzon, who is really great and he's a super professional with lighting and making sure everything was set up. And he was sometimes doing it all by himself. But sometimes he wasn't available, so I'd get one of my friends. And sometimes that's kind of all you need for something like Ahmed's Pond, where it's the idea is that we're directing it like in character. And Ahmed is the one who's meant to be directing it, so we don't have to make it look too fancy.
Yeah, it's got to be a little bit of a challenge to make things look, pardon my French, but shitty, but not too shitty, to have that aesthetic of public access and local commercials.
Yeah, and that's actually like kind of a hard thing. There's parts of the movie that I think look really good, and that is Edgar. But there's also things where I'm like, you know what, my buddy Charles can just set up a tripod and we can shoot this song just outside my house or in my basement. Shooting all the Mosley Rose and stuff, that was mostly in my basement, and it was like, oh man, when you get used to shooting in your basement, that is sweet.
And is it almost all green screen?
No, there's a lot of live locations. Like all of Ahmed's Pond, we had to go to this place called Ponds on White, and we couldn't do that for free because they're pawn shop guys and they want to barter with you. So we ended up, that's one of the only locations where I really had to spend money to let us shoot there at night for like 6 or 7 hours. They were great guys. But I was when the only location where I was just like, man, this is killing my wallet. Yes, shooting in a studio was cheaper than shooting in the pawn shop.
That's pretty wild. Yeah. You said that these are mostly comedians from Edmonton. Are you into that scene, or how do you know these folks?
I am actually a stand-up comedian in Edmonton also. That's how I know them. Yeah, it's my community.
I know that they're probably better actors than they are showing on screen, which I also appreciate that whole idea of we have to encapsulate what these local origination commercials are like.
Some of them are not. A few of them is their first time ever appearing on a camera. That's what kind of makes them so funny, is that there's something really raw about them, and there's a little bit of nervous energy, but especially as like the movie goes on, like they're clearly hiding every character is hiding something. And that kind of community theater energy is actually what makes a lot of the film feel so unique to me.
I love just the way that you're telling a story through these other pieces, because when you first get into it and you start watching this, you're just like, okay, this is just a bunch of commercials. And then your brain starts telling you the story that you're telling me. And it takes a while for my brain to catch up with what your story is, which I loved.
That's great. Yeah, good to hear.
This whole idea of editing and finding the story as you go through, it sounds like a really arduous process.
Yeah, I am like a filmmaker. Like I like regular ass movies and traditional scripts and traditional narrative structure. But I also I felt like if I was going to get any attention for a low budget movie, I had to do something really, really weird. And I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. Like I knew that it would take at least a few years if I was going to turn it into a feature. But I don't know. I was just willing to do that because I really liked the people in the movie. I liked the people that I was working with, and I felt like a lot of obligation to them.
And going back to the editing, the pace of the movie is fantastic as well. How do you know when to make those cuts and like how to form that structure of just like, all right, we're going to start to amp it up, because it really feels like the movie gets quicker the farther it goes along.
That's great to hear. It's just sucks the things that you how you have to cut, because you're like, there's some parts where it's like, oh man, that could be, some of them are just like other scripts now. Yeah, there's just a lot of ideas. We just keep generating ideas, and then the world sort of unravels. So it's like you're exploring the world while also hopefully keeping the narrative tight.
When it comes to the aesthetic of the film, obviously you're not shooting on VHS. How are you giving it that aesthetic look?
Ahmed's Pawn was shot on like a 1080p SLR, but some of it was shot on REs, and a lot of it was done with 4K. And looking back, it's like we did not need to do that. If I was gonna go back and shoot it now, I just not do so much. I would actually probably have done less involved camera work, because sometimes like a director of photography wants a big lighting setup, and they have no idea that later on I'm going to turn the whole thing black and white, or I'm going to be adding some kind of filter to it. It could have been that, but also like that kind of adds to it. It gives the certain parts of it like maybe a little bit of texture.
I imagine it's got to be easier to go from good quality footage to shitty footage rather than trying to make shitty footage look like good quality footage.
Yeah, 100%. And it also, that's the way special effects look best when you're downgrading the footage. Is when you look at District 9, that's like those are the best special effects I've ever seen. There are moments in that where I genuinely can't tell what is CGI, especially at the beginning during like the found footage segment. Yeah, District 9, would you call it like a found footage movie?
That's a good question. Yeah, because some of it does feel like that, but then we break once we get back into the actual district itself and follow along the Sharlto Copley character. That feels more like a narrative. But yeah, there are definite like the news breaks, those kind of things.
Yeah, it still feels vaguely. I think like it's all handheld and stuff. Like that's what gives like those special effects like such a great vibe, because you're really just following around this guy, and it's like almost like After Hours, like that Scorsese movie, but it's just one guy slowly turning into a shrimp.
What did you use to actually do those effects?
There's actually a CC TV filter. I forget what HTML, HDMI. I think it's like a sharpening tool that they use for VHS, but you can just use it as like an Adobe filter. And I used that, and then I used a couple of overlays, and some of the commercials got more overlays than other ones, like Ahmed's Pawn or Mosley Rosen. Each of them has their own style. Like I wanted to make sure that they each kind of using their own different cameras. And Buffy Infinity, as it's getting better, it's like using a better camera. Even though it's like the early 2000s, it's like, oh, you know what? This weird otherworldly entity is now it's bought a red camera.
Yeah, now it suddenly looks better. Yeah. The whole idea of these local origination commercials is a bygone age. And I was curious what appealed to you about that. And did you have any favorite commercials when you were growing up from that milieu?
Definitely appears. I just love that period because I think we're probably around the same age. I'm 40, and so I'm a millennial. And that period in the 90s, my dad worked in CBC, which is like the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, for 40 years. It's not just like sentimental. It's like, that's when I see that logo, I'm like, oh, that's dad. Yeah. And also in terms of the actual story itself, I wanted it not just to be nostalgic. I think that there's like a lot of function to the form where, because it's all commercials and all from that era of like early 2000s, late 90s, the idea is that all of the things that are happening right now that are troubling, like AI, your phone algorithms, media kind of consolidation, all of that stuff, all happening all at once, but all in the early 2000s. And if it all happened all at once, it'd be actually a terrifying horror movie.
I found it very funny that your car dealership commercials were all about this superhero character, because we had a superhero car dealer here as well. So I don't know if every town had to have a superhero car dealership or not.
Yeah, I actually did the commercials for them because I did the storyboards or the animation assets. It had the same production design as this. Not exactly, but there was like an animated version of it. It was like a Honda dealership in Sherwood Park, Alberta. It's such a fun thing to do because it's like they're not looking to have it look super good, but also there's like a weird amount of ego to go along with it too. Where there's a guy who was like, I am a superhero of savings.
We had Melfar Superstar. Melfar was a former Detroit Lion, and he opened up a series of car dealership here, and he would fly off at the end of every commercial. It was pretty great. Even occasional appearances by Tito Jackson of the Jackson 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tito's getting in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm waiting for the Tito biopic now.
Tito by A24.
Where did the film premiere?
Premiered at Fantasia Fest in August of last year. I went home and I immediately cut like 10 to 12 minutes out, like right away. But like that was the best reaction ever. I'd say reaction wise, Fantasia was the best because that was the world premiere. Our families all came from Edmonton to Montreal. It was my first time in Montreal. But it's not like a super fun memory because it was like mostly we had to bring our toddler with us. Not had to, but it's like we got to bring our wonderful toddler with us. Montreal's just not a town to hang out with a baby in. When we went to Germany last week, we were just like, sorry, you're staying with grandparents. This is mommy daddy time.
Yeah, where all has it played at?
It's had like a really, really good festival run. So it went from Fantasia to Stitches to Brooklyn Horror Film Festival to I was in Calgary Underground last week, then Germany, the Hardline Film Festival, then the Overlook, and then there's a Slash Film Festival in Vienna, and yeah, I think it's at I can't pronounce the name of the French film festival that it's at right now, but I think it's on this weekend there, and South by Southwest in Sydney South by Southwest. It's so cool. And I didn't get to go to all these places, but it's like without having ever made a movie, and just our producer telling me that this is like a really good run, it makes me, yeah, it makes me super happy. It's like I made this in my basement. I had no idea that people in, I guess, South Korea are going to see it in a few months.
So what's next for the film and what's next for you?
The film's going to be on demand in about a week or so. Really excited to have like lots and lots of people hopefully be able to see it. Then it'll go to a streaming service, an unnamed streaming service at some point down the line, hopefully. And for me, I'm going to shoot a feature this summer really, really quickly. And when I say really quickly, I'm like, I got to do something.
When is the Blu-ray release with all the extra footage on it?
That will probably be a little bit after the summer, I think. I think it'll be Blu-ray, and I'm trying to convince them to do VHS, but I don't know. Yellow Veil's really cool about, they've been amazing with as like a distributor and guiding me through everything, but they also are just like very dedicated to physical releases, and especially for films like Buffy Infinity that don't always get a lot of attention. They've been, just really cool about everything. And I would like to, having a DVD of your own movie would be so cool.
I've been recommending it to all my friends who I know that would enjoy this film, and hopefully people listening to this will pick up on that and also check this out, and pick up the Blu-ray when it's available and see it when it's available to rent. And is there a good place to keep up with the film or you online?
You can follow me at Simon Glassman with 2 N's, and you can check out what's happening with the movie at Buffy Infinity Movie on Instagram.
Thank you so much. Great talking with you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for chatting with me. This is awesome.